Good evening. Good evening from my star in the galaxy. I say it every week because I'm always happy to be a star in the galaxy here in the Middle East of the universe. Good afternoon to Jeannie, my co-host, Jeannie Colwyn from LA. And we're going to introduce Gina Mullen from New Mexico, which is Mountain Time. So I love these time zones. Anyway, I do want to say something about my co-host. Every few weeks, I invite Jeannie to co-host with me, and it really becomes a very rich and deep and heartfelt conversation with Jeannie. She's not only beautiful and smart, she has come on the other side of a 16-year healing journey, a recovery journey with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, how to stop teaching. I mean, I have posted her bio many times, and you can find it on her Facebook page. But you have your business Facebook page, so not so much Jeannie Cohen. What is your business your group face page?
Yeah, Jeannie Coleman Coaching is my the
Right,
business.
right, right.
Yeah.
And you can have a discovery call with her. You can find her through me. She's very big. She does some beautiful work on Instagram. I borrow some of her work. I ask her first. We
Oh,
borrow each other's work. She sometimes goes live with Scotty, who also had an incredible recovery program. Who was just interviewed. Both were interviewed by Dr. David Clark. Beautiful. Anyway, so thank you, Jeannie, for holding the space for me so we can meet Gina Mullen and hear. I have just recently started to meet the people from another community, Raylan Angel, is that how you
Bagel.
pronounce it? Agel. Her community, I was interviewed a few months ago, and it really opened up my mind and my eyes to not only what long COVID has been doing to some people, how they're coming out of it, and how they're some people are really so stuck, but how it's moved into chronic fatigue, and that's I think what Raylan has healed herself from and wrote a book. So I've been meeting some of the people from her community, and of course, when they have a healing recovery story, I kind of want to connect to them and bring it to mine and Jeannie's community, which is more the Sarno neuroplastic, which we're realizing is all the same, right,
Mhm.
Jeannie? So I contacted Jeannie, and she was like, "I have a recovery story," and was so courageous to talk about it. And Jeannie and I talk about how when we come and we talk about our healing, how that adds to your healing. So if anybody out there, you don't have to be recovered or cured. Excuse me, God cures, as far as I'm concerned. But if you're on a healing journey and you want to come and speak on this roundtable, Ginny and I will hold the space for you because we just love supporting you and hearing from you, and it's helping others, and it will help you. It will actually be really good for your nervous system. All that to say is, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to let Gina Mullen speak. And Gina, rather than me talk a little bit more about you, I'd rather you just sort of say, like, when it happened, what was going on, what didn't happen, what did happen for you. Maybe something happened in your childhood that preempted this. I would love you to share with the listeners, and we're listening.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start with the fact that I don't have any notable trauma in my background. Life was actually going really well when I got sick. My family's always been a hiking family, and we had finally, well, we got a permit to do a very long distance hike in the Sierras. It was like 200 miles, and we took our two kids, and it was the best thing we've ever done. Um, 2 weeks after we got back, we all got COVID, and they all got better, and I just didn't. Um, so I guess it was feeling like it was getting better. So I got sick in July, and through October, I was making small strides. I was mostly not working, though I was trying. Um, And then I would just get these crashes at the end of every month. And then at the end of December, I just had a huge crash that just leveled me. So at that point, I was couch bound. I couldn't hold conversations. I've mentioned this to you before, but my cognitive dysfunction, I can't even call it brain fog because it just doesn't come close to describing what I was experiencing. So I couldn't read at all. I couldn't read a Facebook post. I couldn't read a menu. I couldn't read anything. I was sleeping 16 hours a day, so I would, sleep maybe 13 hours at night and then with naps. And so that was extremely rough. And that was about the time when I got in to see my primary care doctor because it took a couple of months. And I could hardly walk from the waiting room to the appointment room. I had to lay down. I couldn't sit in the chair. And I couldn't even keep my eyes open. The whole thing was very difficult. And I was not offered, I was offered much compassion, but not much tangible help. Um, so then I was able to get in to see a long COVID specialist. And I was able to go on some medications that helped, but didn't really change things. And there were more medications. I felt like the medications were the answer, and my doctor just wasn't giving me the ones that I needed. And so I was able to find another long COVID doctor. And this doctor was willing to prescribe every medication under the sun. So anything that there were some studies suggesting it might be helpful, he was totally willing to prescribe. And so with these medications, I did make improvements. And so I was able to go from couch-bound to housebound, which is huge. It really opens things up, but it's not enough. Um, I still couldn't go with my family on vacations. I missed my kids' performances. It just wasn't a very full life. So at a certain point, my long COVID doctor was like, well, we will keep trying to help you. But it was clear they were at the bottom of their bag of tricks. There were no more easy things to try. The last suggestion that they had was to get a surgery that to expand one of my pelvic veins. So a pretty invasive surgery that was fixing something that's always been wrong with me. Not a real great chance of this being successful from my perspective. So all along, I had kind of been under the assumption that if I could just get these medications that I thought were the answer, then I would get better. And that's not how it panned out. And then I was having certain mast cell activation syndrome symptoms. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out what my genes are telling me. So I get all this genetic testing done, and I am so sure I'm going to have trouble with histamine processing or something. And I get my genetic test back, and there is nothing there, not a thing. So all of this kind of set me up to be open to a mind-body approach because it was clear that they weren't finding anything wrong with my body. Maybe some little things, like there was some microclotting, but I took like anticoagulants and that didn't fix me. So then I was thinking about that, and then also my symptoms, right? Like temperature dysregulation. I got car sickness where I never got car sickness before. Cognitive dysfunction, extreme fatigue, muscle pains, heart palpitations, just constipation, just all these different symptoms that did not seem to me like it could be coming from one place other than the brain. And so
So I just want to stop you for a minute. That's so interesting. If people could, because Jeannie just put a post that the more symptoms you have, the more likely it's neuroplastic. So that's
Mhm.
very, and you figured this out before you even knew what the word meant, Gina.
Um, you know what? I'm not sure that I gave that a lot of thought before I heard about the approach, but after I heard about the approach, it all kind of clicked together. In addition, I mean, like you look at the symptoms for people with long COVID, and it's like over 200 symptoms,
No.
and we
I've
are
never
all
heard that.
have the
Wow.
same
Yeah.
problem. So, so I found recovery interviews on Ray Nagel's website and just started watching them. One of the first ones I came across was Jan Rothney's, who's the author of Breaking Free. And I got that book and audiobook because I still couldn't read. And I was like, okay, I can try this. Like, my next step is surgery. What have I got to lose by just trying this? So, go
Can I
ahead.
ask you, yeah, just because we always like to know, yeah, how you came upon the mind body? Did you have, it sounds like you didn't have a lot of resistance, but did it seem like wackery or woo, or how did you find it and what were your first thoughts?
So, I found it. I have a little bit of trouble remembering, but I think it was through Raylan's recovery interviews.
Like
Um,
on internet or
yeah,
Instagram or
on
something?
YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
Um, and so, like, I think I just watched one or two, and then I read the book. And like I said, because I was no longer holding on to the hope that the medical establishment had an answer for me. And it just made sense to me that with all these super weird symptoms, like I had this super weird slow walk. And I had a doctor ask me, he's like, why are you walking slow? Are you tired? Are you off balance? And I just couldn't even say why. Just my father in law, who lives next door, is in his 90s and he would outpace me. Like, he's in good shape, but he's not in that good shape. So that's just a weird symptom. And also, I just had this sense that my world had been turned upside down because all of the rules that my body had always followed no longer was it following. Like post exertional malaise is a super weird thing. Like no, most people have never had an experience like this where you can be completely fine doing an activity and not pay for it until 24 hours later, and then you are laid out for a week. Like, so all of those things and just the weirdness of it really just convinced me that maybe it was coming from the brain.
Yeah. Wow. So what were some of the first things that you started to implement, or the tools you learned, or the changing of thinking when you first started?
Right. So I had already been doing some breath work and I had already been doing some yoga nidra, and those things were, I think, useful for laying some groundwork. Um, but one of the very first things that I did was visualization. So the visualization that I used was like your amygdala, your fear center, like you walk through the door and it's a control center and it's on high alert. It's in, panic mode. And so I would walk into, really crystal clear, see this old like 1960s equipment and be like, there's the lever. So I would visualize turning down that lever to turn off this emergency system. And so I did that a few times at home. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk.
Good. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can do this. I believe this.
Yeah.
I can do this. And so I was walking, and then my heart palpitations start, and my fatigue gets worse. And I visualized pulling the handle, and the heart palpitations literally just stopped. I had to do it again a couple minutes later, but it just stopped, and then I didn't have to do it again the rest of the time. And so that was amazing success. Like if you don't believe it after that, I don't know, what it would take. But with just that, My heart palpitations stopped, my heat intolerance and problems with showering, like I used to have to like rest for an hour after I took a shower. Those
Mm.
things just stopped immediately, which is amazing. It was a little bit hard, a little bit emotionally difficult to have it be that easy after suffering so
Mm.
much for years. It kind of almost felt invalidating.
Yeah.
Uh, that was a part of me. The bigger part of me was just really excited that it worked.
Did you
So
feel too, Gina, did you feel like you were finally, when you saw this page and success stories, did you feel like you had hope again? And do you think that lowered your fear and was all connected?
you know, I had hope much of the way through. I, with everything I hadn't tried yet, I was like, this could be it. This could be the end of it. Like at the very beginning, I was like, I'm just going to rest and I'm going to be fine. And then after my big crash, I still hadn't seen any of the doctors. So I was like, I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to have something for me and I'm going to be fine. So every single medication, everything, it was arranged, like the SSRIs, I was open to it working, not really convinced it would. Other things, I was like, okay, the low dose naltrexone is going to be my answer. And it would be a little bit, but not entirely. So I would say, although I experienced plenty of fear during my journey, I really had, like I really did have hope that there was going to be an answer. Maybe a little less so as time went on, but um,
Ask a quick question here because, you know, for you to get a relief in symptoms was a real message for you, which makes me think the other people that are really struggling with the long COVID and chronic fatigue, when they're not getting an immediate, like your heart palp, I want to say to them, to the listeners, we don't always have to look at symptoms as an indication that we're getting better.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, if you're like your hope was there are just so many people who aren't getting what you got and are just so down for the count. So I'm trying to think, are
so
they
one
not
thing,
seeing their improvements? Are they don't have the hope you had? Like, what can we say to the people that are going, because you're on the couch for 8 months. You couldn't read a menu. So we didn't even talk about like what was going on in your head for 8 months.
yeah, it wasn't good.
So obviously you maintained a level of like, okay, like this is a process I need to go through and not counting like you obviously had some higher evolved level of I am going to beat this without beating at it, but somehow meeting it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I did try to do that, sometimes more successfully than others, sometimes had more grace than others. But one thing I do want to point out is although those symptoms disappeared so fast, I was not better so fast. Like it was a great sign that I was on the right path, but I'm still working my way through it. And it took probably 3 months for me to really be feeling good. And so, even if specific symptoms went away, like that wasn't the end of it. Like there was still a lot of work to do. And so, if you're not seeing symptoms resolve right away, that's okay. Like that's totally normal. And even those of us who see fast progress, most of us only see fast progress in pieces here and there. Like the bigger picture takes is taking me longer.
So when you yourself went through, like I just heard this word, I've heard it years ago, but then I revisited this word about the post malaise. Like share with some of the listeners that you tried something, you felt better, and then you crashed. Like what was that like for you, and how were you able to pick yourself up? Because I see people crashing and they're not picking themselves up, and I'm the best cheerleader they can have, and they're not picking themselves up because they don't have the belief. And so, what you must have felt that, and how did you pick
Yeah,
yourself up?
and did some. a hard thing. It's really hard. On top of just losing your ability to do anything, just this feeling like I said before, like all the rules have changed. Like you can't rely on your body to do the things that you have always been able to count on it doing, and it's a scary thing. I don't know why. I just always believed that, you know, maybe it's just because with every other thing I've ever had, it's passed. Or I've had a couple of other medical issues where I had a foot problem and couldn't walk on it for like a year. I saw like 7 different podiatrists, and it wasn't until number 7 where I got any help at all. So I guess I had some experience with things looking pretty bleak and just persevering and finding the answer. So,
That's the name of a book.
Yeah. And I think it's really good to point out to Gina how a lot of people get a little stuck because they, just like you, didn't have trauma. I also had like 0 on the ACE scale, and they can get really stuck of this doesn't apply to me.
yes, and actually, that's one of the things I really wanted to talk about today, because I think that there's a lot of people who take the quizzes or hear about the personality types that are often associated with this. And I believe that there's a correlation between being perfectionist and a people pleaser and an achiever. But you don't have to have those characteristics for this to work. Um, I didn't identify with a lot of those personality traits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, but if you feel like this might be it, don't let those um, generalizations keep
Mm-hmm.
from trying it, because I feel like one of the things that I was good at is taking a look at the things that were put in front of me and kind of ignoring the pieces that didn't apply to me, but
Good.
focusing on the pieces that did apply to me. And
Mhm.
that was true in terms of considering nervous system training. It was true in terms of everything. Like some people say box breathing is the best, but for me that completely didn't work. I just had to do the longer exhales than inhales.
Yeah.
Just with every single thing, take a look at what might work for you.
Yeah.
Don't take one piece of it and just assume it won't work for you because one piece of it doesn't. And as you guys have mentioned before, with all of these conditions, this is an N of one. Everybody is different. And the specific pieces that worked for me, some of them might work for you, but you might need to find additional ones. And
Mhm.
from what I've seen on the forums and in interviews, it just sounds like this is a really powerful approach, but it's not straightforward. Um, and a lot of times, individuals need a very specific thing that maybe somebody else doesn't need. So if you get part way with this, awesome, don't give up. Like, keep looking for those other pieces.
Mhm. Did you have any not problems, but kind of that some people try to dig and, you know,
I did a little bit of that, and then I was like, you know what? I don't feel like this is my path. I,
yeah. How was it
so
with emotions with you? Was that something that, like these repressed, Sarno with repressed emotions, is that part of
that
the
is not
recovery?
me. That's
Interesting.
not me.
That's so good. That's so good to share because I think everyone's
Yeah, no,
journey.
my emotions are out there. Like I cry during every movie preview. I
Yes, that's, yeah, okay.
um, yeah, and so okay, so I read Jen Rothney. I watched a ton of recovery interviews, and then I used the Curable app. Again, I'd never had chronic pain, but I gave it a go and took from it what I could. And so, for example, I tried journaling. I tried it a couple of times and it did not speak to me. And so I let that go, but the visualizations did. And so I modified them instead of being for pain, for being for my other symptoms. And so, yeah, just whatever tools are in front of you, feel free to modify them so that they fit what you're going through, if you can figure out how to do that.
And I think visualization is a great reminder too, right, Tovah? Because we work with people who don't have energy, of course, like the energy or if you have severe brain fog and then you have to write. I mean, I didn't do journaling either. So, yeah, there's so many ways, but visualization, just a nice reminder. You can be in your bed with your eyes closed. And so there's always something that you can do. I mean, not all day, but yeah, we have tools for anything that you need.
Yeah, and so the visualization is an example of a proactive tool, but the other is how you react to your symptoms. And
Yeah.
so, like I said before, my fear was less around recovering and more around just your body's doing weird things. And I especially had trouble when I left the house, which was usually for a doctor's appointment or for work, because that was when I really pushed myself to go out when I really completely was not up for it. So at doctor's appointments and at my office, it was just extremely upsetting to feel so bad in an environment where, usually if you're super sick, you don't go to work. I
Yeah.
guess you go to the doctors, but you don't go to work. But like, I would go into work and be so tired I couldn't even sit in my chair. And so then I would sit on the floor with my back up against the wall. I'm like, I can't do this either. And then I laid on my floor and slept for 2 hours. And that was just terrifying to have to do that. And so after I started going through the nervous system training, one of the big things is to react better to your symptoms. So I felt like I was feeling better. I went to the office, but at this point, I was having some slightly new symptoms. I was having these deep, deep blood sugar crashes. So I went to the office and I started having a blood sugar crash. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to eat my snacks, and I'll be fine. And so I ate all my snacks. I was not fine. I was still laying on my office floor again. So I remembered my training and I'm like, okay, Gina, you're going to react well to this, which was not easy. It really wasn't easy. And so I picked myself up off the floor, walked to the office next door, and asked my coworker to order me food. And she's like, go ahead and order it and I'll pick it up for you. I'm like, I can't order it. Could you please order it for me? Very difficult, very vulnerable situation. Very easy to get upset about it. But remembering my training, I was like, okay, I can do this. I will be better off if I don't freak out about this. And so I was pretty proud of myself for getting through that and staying calm. And she got me my food. I ate. I felt better. And I went home.
That has to be, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what, but the fear of the symptoms, you talk about something so important. The relationship with the symptoms is almost like a deal breaker for so many people, because it's at that moment you have a choice, to react or to respond. And that's where maybe the doubt comes in. Like here you're like doing okay, and then you have a day where you're crashing and the pain comes or the symptoms come and you're back to square one. You're questioning because they're higher today. And you're not acknowledging that you unconsciously are thinking about something that triggered you, like, because there's always a reason for the symptom, especially in neuroplasticity and autoimmune. There's a reason because nothing happened. You didn't do anything to change, to make something organic or make something structure. You didn't fall, you didn't break anything, you didn't, like, this is where at this point we're trying to help people literally with the fear. And intellectually, we all know my fear of my pain and my fear of these symptoms is much greater than the actual sensations. But at that point, some people, that's it. They lost it. They lost that potential connection with that. Oh, okay, this is brain pain. Like you just explained how you did that. okay, this is brain pain. And Jeannie and I have met people who have like been waiting for surgery a week later, and then they read the book and they're like, I'm going for a run, and I'm going to run with pain. I'm going to run with pain. I remember, Fred Amir, who wrote a book called Rapid Recovery, the Persian gentleman from, I think, LA. He was on my show twice, and he had horrible sciatica, leg pain. He couldn't even walk, and his vision was he wanted to lift his 4-year-old daughter, because we always talk about having. He studied athletes. They have a motivation. I'm going to get this last mile, no matter how much pain. It's not about athletes, but he understood the mindset. He went walking with horrible leg pain, went off a curb, stepped down, had a horrible sharp pain. All he could visualize was, I want to lift my 4-year-old daughter. So it's like, it's him and his pain and his vision of his 4-year-old daughter. So the brain, I feel like the brain somehow did the thing like what Trubner talks about. If you're running and you sprain your ankle, you're not going to feel pain. If a lion's running after you and you sprain your ankle, you're not going to feel the pain. So I feel like we can create this part of our brain. They call it the there's a name for when the brain chooses what's most important. The brain will choose what's most important if you let it choose. Okay, I can't think of the name right now. And so we have to choose what's most important. We have to decide that I am uncomfortable. I do not feel good. I am scared. That's the reality. We're not talking about fighting reality. Okay, but then I am stronger than this sensation. I'm okay. The doctors have nothing to say to me. I need to get on the other side of this sensation. So, what kind of moment do I want now? Relationship do I want with my high number 10 sensation in order to get on the other side of it so I can teach my brain that I'm okay? So, this is this place that intellectually all of our clients know and all the people on our Facebook pages know. But when they get in front of this pain and this sensation, which feels so real, this is where you were able to have a relationship with Gina. You were able to meet it. And so this is something I want to talk a little bit more about to help some of the people who get to that place. They meet, they're in front of their high symptom, and they don't. I don't know what happens. I've not been there with that kind of pain, but how would you want to help somebody who is just full of fear and really just lets the brain begins to control them even more than the initial attack because they've reacted.
Let me see. So my first thought is, if you can react just a little bit better than you did yesterday, then you're making progress. And so maybe you're not reacting with the total equanimity that you would like, but if it's just a little bit better, that's great. That's awesome. Um, then the other piece of really great advice I've heard elsewhere is rely on somebody else's confidence. So even because during my recovery, like I said, some things were really fast, and then I would go weeks without seeing much of an improvement. And honestly, even if it had been just a couple of days without an improvement, I would have been like, oh no, like I was doing so good and now I'm not, and I'm not getting anywhere. So then I would just do my best. I would just do my best to be like, it's going to be fine. Don't think about it. And then my family around me is like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And I'm like, don't ask me how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So I made really fast progress, but even during my really short times when I didn't dip very much. It was just no progress. And even with that, I was kind of uncomfortable with that. I just did my best and just kept doing the things. And Something that I think I would recommend now that I'm mostly on the other side of it is because I can look back and see like not making progress for 2 weeks is not a big deal. That's fine.
Yeah.
So try to imagine yourself in the future recovered and what you might feel about your 2 weeks of a dip or your 2 weeks of not making progress. Like once you're better, those 2 weeks aren't going to feel like anything, even though they feel like everything right now. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think that's a really good point because I see with clients, I'm sure Tova you do too, that a lot of us tend to be all or nothing, very binary in this community. So when you hear us say bring down the fear, I mean, I always tell clients we have 65,000 thoughts a day on average. So if the thoughts are fear, then the client thinks, or the person in recovery, all the thoughts. So yeah, I do exactly that, Gina. Like, let's see if we can bring down the fear thoughts 5%, or just notice them. And like, it doesn't mean you have to control the thoughts or not have the thoughts. I always say, if I tell you not to think of a pink elephant, you're going to think of it. So it's not helpful to like, don't have that fear thought, don't think that. But also, just if you do, just realize your silly brain, or, however works for you, like, I'm not my thoughts, these are irrational, and just separate from it. I think that can take down the pressure too. It's okay. We've talked to Dr. Hamska and Tova with, the OCD thoughts, and he always talks about you can't control them. So even if you have the scary thoughts and you have the fear, just realize you don't have to buy into it. And I think 5% bringing down the fear. And it's a process. And so little baby. And again, I want to highlight too, Gina, because this is so important. People think that when they have symptoms, it's not working. They think they're doing something wrong. And this is part of the process. It's not immediate. Like 2 days I didn't have fear, so all my symptoms should be gone. Because then what happens is people have expectations, and now they have added sadness. They feel guilty. They feel shame, when it's actually just the very, very normal process.
I thought of what I forgot.
Yeah.
So it's called the Cellulant Network, and it's in a page in the beginning of Dr. Howard Schultz's book, Unlearn Your Pain. It's really, really incredible. This is where it talks about the lion. The lion's chasing you and you sprain your ankle. The body's not going to cause pain because the body's protecting you and deciding what's important. And the story about the soldiers who would get injured, in the war, but if they were going home, they would pain. So we understand our relationship with pain. It's very important. And I end up meeting like people that are nurses that get sick or they get ill. And so they have all this knowledge, and it doesn't always serve them to have all this knowledge. So we have to understand your relationship with pain. And a nurse is highly evolved when it comes to sickness and pain and symptoms, and yet Lalita, who I spoke to a few weeks ago, healed from horrible, horrible chronic fatigue, and she's a nurse. So, we have to look at our person. Look at Dr. Hanscom. Look at the doctors that have been through some of the neuroplastic symptoms himself. So, I think it's important to know yourself, and I hear you, Gina, talking about how you got to know yourself. You got to be with yourself. You befriended yourself in a way that allowed you to walk together to that healing. And this is key when we meet people that are on the other side of recovery. It's a relationship with themselves. So I'm sure it was very lonely for you at times. And how did you
For
make that?
everybody, right? It's a really lonely experience. Um, yeah, I was lucky to have very supportive family, which was enormously helpful. But, you know, for all of us, there are some people who were there for us that we expected to be there, and people who were not there for us that we also would have expected. And all of it's hard. But I feel like another big piece is trying to find something you enjoy even when you're not feeling well. Mm-hmm. And so for me, at times, it was just like looking at leaves blowing outside the window, which was a very lovely, soothing feeling. when I was not at my worst, it was audiobooks or TV shows. And then we fostered kittens for a while. And
Oh,
that was so much fun and also was like a great sense of purpose too. So, so yeah, like the loneliness is a little bit tough. Like the online forums are a big thing just to feel understood because the people around you really don't understand. Um, so the forums and the YouTube videos definitely were huge for me in that regard.
yeah. Beautiful. And then I know Tova and I'm kind of laughing because when we're in it, we don't think of any of this as being a gift at all sometimes. And I know you're on it. So I think you're there, but it can sound a little bit cliche, like this is a gift or like what did you learn? But because, and I want to say too, because I've been diving in more, Tova, I don't know if you know, with the work with Dr. Becca Kennedy, and she's like the forefront expert with women's health and like leading with like long COVID. And I was just went in one of her trainings, and she said the same thing about over 200 symptoms, but it's most common with middle-aged women with a history of anxiety, depression, and PTSD.
Wow, 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 wow.
And then women are being just discounted, right? Because, oh, they're just hysterical and they're right. So
One thing I would like to point out as a medical intervention that was truly huge for me, and so as I mentioned, I was having crashes on a monthly basis. And eventually I figured out that it lined up with my cycle. And so I went in and saw my gynecologist, and she changed my birth control. And that was the last time I had a crash associated with my cycle. Not my last
Wow.
crash. But, I would recommend that if you are having that trouble, issues lining up with your cycle, there are hormone treatments that really can help and put you on more stable footing for recovery.
yeah. So just knowing that those statistics, right, that this is affecting women more. And then it's great to hear, your side, Gina, that it didn't sound like you had, those typical things that sometimes would take people out and they would cause a lot more doubt, and they would cause that this isn't for me, or this won't work for me. And so we just want to spread the word on this, because the more we can point out the inconsistencies and give hope is awesome. I also recovered from chronic fatigue by going back to work full time. I was a teacher.
Oh,
And
wow.
my high school kids do not let you feel sorry for yourself, like at all. Like I remember being at home and not working on disability, and poor me. I mean, I had a lot of stuff going on, but going back to work full time, which I don't say is the right for everyone. I was forced to not be in the fear and the poor me thinking.
I was, my employer was really wonderful through this, and they allowed me to work to the extent that I was able to through the whole thing.
Amazing.
And I do feel like doing a certain level of work was helpful for me.
Yeah, because the purpose too,
Hmm.
right? So we want to know if this has changed you in a beautiful way, if you feel that someone, because we work with people who are in the throes of it. They're like, there's nothing, I'm doing all the right things. This is a bunch of, crap. It's horrible, which is totally fine wherever you are in your journey. But we do want to see or show, have there been transformations spiritually, personally in your
Yeah.
life?
And so my view on this is continually changing. So I started this process in December, and I would consider myself about 90% recovered now. And if you'd asked me 3 months ago, I was still in the place where, like, dude, this was not worth it. It's
Yeah.
still not worth it. But I have become really, really good at figuring out what is worth my energy and what is not, in a way that I was not before I got sick. I was definitely an internalizer, and that's still my default. But I am much better at taking a look at, like, okay, what are the things I want to get done? What are the priorities? And anything that's not a priority, I am much better at just pushing to the side in a way that I was not before.
And maybe so it sounds like maybe boundaries, or maybe saying no more, getting your needs met a bit. Is that right?
You know what? I've always been pretty good at boundaries, which is why um, 30 hours a week is full time for me because I've always needed a little bit more rest than other people. And so I was like, 30 hours is what I can do. I know that people would like me to work more, but I know that for my own mental health, I really just need to cap it at 30. So in terms of boundaries with other people, I was not bad. It was just self-imposed stress that I was less good at dealing with.
Do you feel like your body, I mean, like I ask this to people and I really want them to change their narrative because it's hard not to think that your body was attacking you. Like you went, and got your vaccine or you didn't, whatever happened. We're not having that discussion tonight, but you got COVID and you didn't recover. Like,
Right.
what kind of the body needs to recover? It was a flu. It was a bad flu. And, so what did you feel like your body was it punishing you?
No, I felt bad for my body too. We were in it together.
Oh,
That's
wow.
big. That's not another book title.
Yeah,
We're in
yeah.
this together. We're in this together.
We are. I mean, like, no, it was horrible for all of us. um, there's the issue of, why me, but there's a lot of bad things that happen to people in the world. It's not just long COVID and not just other TMS issues. There's a lot of hard things, and we all get our share, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think once we know that you can heal and that there is hope, it feels better. But definitely, I know for me, I had no idea about mind, body, or TMS for ever.
no, and it is my dream for people to be able to learn this from whatever practitioner they go to. I would so love that. And so actually that's one of my new hobbies is putting together information packets and sending it to my healthcare providers.
Wow.
You should link up with Dr. Becca Kennedy or be in her world because I heard someone in the training ask, they wanted to talking about endometriosis of all things, and we're seeing a mind body component there, and people have endometriosis and have no pain, and it is hard to get the word out. So she was,
It is. And I'm doing it slowly. I'm starting with practitioners, I think, that are more open to it, but I do plan on getting it to everybody. And my thought is whether they take it seriously or not, maybe it will plant a seed and it'll take the next person, be ready to hear it the next time they come across it.
Also on the symptomatic me, which used to be the physiopsychological disorders, they have a letter there. I'll never forget this. A letter that you can download that you can give to your doctor and say, would you like to co-manage with me in doing this? Like, I know I need the medicine, I need the chemo, but can we somehow something like, can we work together?
That's an awesome resource.
It's beautiful, yeah. And I remember back, it was about 5 years ago when I met Dr. Hanscom, like it was just about chronic pain, but Dr. Hanscom and and many doctors agree now, like that autoimmune is now part of the umbrella. There's certain autoimmunes aren't, but I happen to think everything is under it. And so we wanted to write a letter, and we constructed a letter about autoimmune. And, it wasn't really received so well, but maybe now it's a different story. But the question is, I think every doctor in today's world after COVID is thinking a little differently. And their eyes have opened up, and now the world's changing. I mean, the world is changing in many ways in front of our eyes. I mean, there was just something came out. My friend told me that, the authorities aren't going to be forcing pregnant women or children to take the COVID vaccine, which people should have a choice. That's my opinion. That's a big change in the universe, in the world, when it comes to choice. And I believe that more and more doctors, like when you meet, the doctors that we study from, and Dr. Brad Fanistel is coming back on my broadcast next week. He's an internal medicine doctor in Colorado. And I think he was kind of kicked out of the hospital kind of thing, like with Dr. Schubernerv. At some point, they're like, you're not making us any money.
Yeah.
Like, you need to go. And Dr. Fanistel's like, great, I'm going to go work out of my basement. And now he's teaching, for behavior processing therapy. He's amazing. It's amazing, doctor, coming from this place. And again, it's everything but woo woo. So I think these are the pathfinders, these MDs like Schrubener and Hanscom and Clark and Becca Kennedy. There's lots of doctors. There's tons of doctors that I'm bumping into who are not really in the community, but really leaning into this mind body neuroplastic work because it's not, they're learning this. They see this. Everybody knows about the phantom leg. Everybody knows about the quantum. Everyone knows about the placebo.
Yeah.
It's just where their focus is. And I think what you're doing, Gina, is so commendable about educating. It's a big thing. It's a big thing in the profession that we want to do that. But it's, we need to have open-minded
Yeah,
docs. So
and
you're
also
obviously attracting them.
it also helps, like, there are at least some of those doctors who saw me pretty regularly when I was sick, and it is so clear I am better now. It is so clear I am not the person I was 6 months ago. I think it makes it a little easier information. And
Amazing use of your time. So there's a few listeners. Anyone want to ask any questions to Jeannie or Gina? Feel free. If you're listening to this and you don't want to ask anything on the Facebook feed, you can always ask Gina or Jeannie through the YouTube. There'll be a description about the show. Will be uploaded tomorrow, and you can reach out to Gina's on Facebook, and Jeannie's on Facebook and Instagram, and even on LinkedIn. You can find us there. You can always reach out to me, and I can connect you because I imagine if somebody wants to talk to you, Gina, you'd be willing to speak with them on
absolutely,
Facebook Messenger. Wow.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, what's the message of this evening? What's this afternoon? What can we leave our listeners? Inspirational, motivational, just outright, like you said, the word vulnerable. Like we kind of need to, as they say, get better at feeling on some level and feel better because that's just calming for the nervous system. And, what you did, Gina, is you calmed your nervous system and you continue to bring calm and safety to a nervous system that was really attacked by the COVID. It was really attacked by that virus. So what would be your message of inspiration that you would leave?
Um, just if you feel at all like mind body might be the approach for you, then just give it a try and follow your intuition about which resources to use, because I know some people get overwhelmed because there's a lot of resources out there. But you don't need to get like hyper focused on finding the perfect program or the perfect book, or just just go with whatever direction resonates with you and just give it a try. Um, and if it's not working, just be open to trying something else. And if you need that extra help and can afford a coach or a program, do it. And then you can get the guidance and be able to borrow somebody else's confidence. But there's a lot of different ways to do this. Just follow your intuition and just try it. There's very little downside to trying it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's pretty much no side effects of this work, right, Tovah? I mean, the
Right.
side effects are going to break you open in a good way, but I mean,
Except your ego, except the ego. Because, I think part of us, we just get disappointed. We healed from everything else. We're accomplished. We're smart and sensitive. And like, Rose would always teach me, like, you don't ask the question why. It's more like, are you curious?
mhm.
Are you curious how come you crashed today? Are you curious?
Right.
And that's a very different relationship with your body, to be curious and not
Right.
ask why.
Yeah,
And I would also say that there are some people who out there who do feel like there are downsides to this. There are people who have tried very aggressive expansion of activity. And there are lots of people who are successful with that. But if that's not something you're comfortable with, it doesn't have to be a big expansion of activity. It can be tiny expansion of activity. Um, and so, especially with tiny expansion of activity, there really, really is no downside.
Because again, we think the symptoms mean that we're failing or we're doing damage, and we just have to reemphasize this is
Right.
all right. So this is not causing the symptom doesn't mean, yeah, you've injured yourself, you've
Right.
done harm to your body. So it's understanding the body and this is here to protect you and like the mind. So yeah, I just really want to emphasize it just brings up like so many emotions. I mean, I can relate, Gina, like I'll just put it out there because a lot of my clients too, we can feel like immense shame or vulnerability or guilt for not working, especially financially. I was, single the whole time I was going through it. Like it can just, and if you do have a partner and they're helping you more, whatever your situation, there's a lot of emotions that can come up. So maybe a lot of us don't feel guilty or shame maybe prior, but now we do, or we feel sadness, we feel anger, we feel frustration. And so it might not be that, oh, my repressed emotions started this whole thing, but guess what? You got some emotions now.
You sure do. Yeah.
And we just want to bring compassion because we know how terrifying it can be, and you don't have to dig deep and like feel everything. And I think just keep moving forward, little baby steps is still healing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, even if those baby steps are just like being more compassionate to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Huge. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so let us know when you write your book. Let us know how many doctors you educate, because I think that's a key in the
Yeah.
world. I think the future is, you know, this is going to be the way doctors are going to treat. They're going to treat the individual, not
Yeah.
the symptoms.
I've definitely come to believe that anybody going through anything hard, anybody going through any difficult medical issues could all benefit from this. Um, like one of the ideas is that like when you're in a highly stressed state, your brain creates all these anchors that keep you tied to your symptoms. And I just feel like I could see that this being helpful in that regard to a lot of people beyond the people with very chronic, severe TMS issues.
So I would like to ask this. We have a few minutes left. I would like to ask this. I didn't read. I ordered the book from Amazon. I'm curious to read um, the book about chronic fatigue, and I even had a conversation with Dr. Hanskin recently, privately. Again, autoimmune chronic pain. Like his thing across the board is you don't treat it any different. I mean, you can understand people have a headache; they might need different things. Of course, that's different, but in general, the brain, the nervous system, the hypervigilance and all that. So would you say that there are certain personality traits or people that who get long COVID or chronic fatigue? Would you think is the book saying anything about that?
Oh
About
yeah,
other personalities?
yeah. They definitely say that it's perfectionists and people pleasers and overachievers and but like I said, that's not something that I identified with. And so I think those things are really useful because I think it can help people identify with this mode of healing, and that's great. And also, it can help people fix traits that keep them stuck. I just don't want people to hear that and think that's not for me, so this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I like that. Like talk about being flexible. Yeah. And how about again? I don't talk about this much, but Gabriel Mate's book is called "When the Body Says No." Like that was the first time I ever started to like, wait a minute. And the body says no, it's because we're always saying yes. I mean, like he
Mhm.
made it so technical It's so physiological when it was just like this concept. Oh, the body says no. But no, like when the body says no, it's because it's listening to you saying yes, 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 and denying yourself and ignoring yourself. And the brain is perceiving that as a threat and creating enormous imbalance and lack of homeostasis in your immune system, and you're sick. And this is from he's also an internal doctor. I turn internist. I forget what kind of doctor he is, but I think that's fascinating to understand our language to ourselves, our communication. Now we're going back to how we speak to ourselves and how we speak to ourselves. And then there's the Joe Dispenza at work. And that's all another broadcast, which I love talking about that stuff. But it sounds like throughout your 2 years, you had this conversation with this dialogue that was kind of like, like even when you crashed, you were like, and that's maybe something we can leave with the listeners is like, how do we take our extreme personality? Because Jeannie and I are a little bit more like bouncing off this one, bouncing off that one. That's Jeannie and I. And Gina is more like, so, how do we take, because we're balanced, we're in a constant state of balance because we learned. But there are people who cannot bring themselves to this place of balance and calm even when they're being triggered. So again, leaving the listeners with, you have that part of you. The body has the solution before the problem. You were well before COVID. People were well even in a toxic environment. Their bodies were always
Right.
striving for good. So there's this innate intelligence, which is my message tonight, the innate intelligence that's always striving for balance and calm. And because you have a calm personality, maybe made it easier for you. But everybody has that ability.
Yeah, and I would say, to just recognize, like, so I would go through, I would like allow myself one like ugly crying pity party a day. Just like sobbing on the couch.
Another name of a great book.
Yeah.
One pity party
So,
a day.
so I would feel it, I would let it out, and then I'd be like, okay, I did that for 15 minutes and now it's time to move on. And so, like, don't deny those things because this is hard. And so, have the feelings and then move on, and you can have the feelings again tomorrow.
I just want to add to that too that I remember being in therapy and crying about the story, which was all true, but I never knew how to feel it in my body. So I just want to,
Mhm.
there are some people too, I had no idea about feeling. I just would be in the story, right? So sometimes people think they are feeling because they're crying, and it sounds like you knew what you were doing, but many, many, many people, and I did not. So I got wrapped up in the story. And so every day or whatever, I was crying. So I just want to, some people might be watching this. I cry. I'm feeling all my emotions. I thought it was feeling all my emotions. I don't feel anything.
So, what was the answer for you? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, so working with a mind body coach actually, because I had so many symptoms in my body that I would dissociate all the time. I'd hang out in my thinking and overwhelm and over analyzing because I didn't know this at the time, but it just felt really scary and dangerous to be in my body. So bringing more safety back, just learning it's safe to be in my body and how that looks like and feels, and like exercises to be more embodied. And maybe I wasn't ready to feel emotions, but can I do a short body scan? Can I be in nature? Just anything to get me in my body. And then like little by little, and also I thought all of the anxiety and emotions were things to fix and get rid of, right? So allowing it and not being scared was huge. So it is for some people, a lot of people I work with, right, they have no idea that anxiety isn't, I mean, we're taught anxiety's bad, here's a pill, like make it go away. And when we allow it, I mean, yeah,
Anxiety is not a bad thing. It's a protective mechanism. Hi, Kim.
exactly.
Kim's from the UK. Sometimes she'll chime in and ask some great questions. This is absolutely me now. I've only just started allowing and feeling these emotions in my body. And Kim, it's not something we watched our parents do. It's not something we learn in school. it's hard to read a book and learn it. I think we have to experience it and kind of fall and get up and fall and get up. And so all the honor to you, Kim, to know you've been on this journey for a while. And it doesn't mean we have to be deeply connected, and we just have to have this awareness and acceptance and compassion and love, and somehow have a neural pathway that we can go to, and I think for each of us it's different. It's not going to be the same compassion neural pathway for any of us, but we can build it. We can make it a habit. We can lean into that rather than the fear, because in that compassion comes the trust, comes the belief. So thank you for bringing that up. And we didn't talk a lot about emotions, but obviously, Gina, maybe let's leave the hour with, like, what emotion was maybe driving your amygdala, to keep your brain and immune system, like, what was really going on for you?
In terms of getting the long COVID in the first place, I don't know. That's not something I have insight on. But in terms of staying sick, it's just really scary to have all the rules change. It is really hard to handle that well. It's hard.
That's why you have, like, so you probably felt a little bit anger, like, what do you, the rules are changing on me, like, I'm living my life, I'm
You
raising a
know, more
family, I'm a mother, like.
confusion, just like and just like stress from not being able to understand what was happening to me.
So this is bad. I think what happens is we have this fear. What do you think, Gina? We have this fear, and underneath it's this angry, like, I don't understand. Like, there's this. So it is a kind of like, all right, body, what are you saying to me? And then you're like, okay, body, you're saying something. Let me listen. See, this is where you took that step further and just calmed yourself down, because you're like, okay, body, like, I'm not going to fight you, because we fight ourselves, we fight. And maybe, Kim, that might be something, honey, over there. And, like, maybe there's some kind of fight. And behind the fight is fear or sadness, or, so we have to be aware of that. And again, it's a lesson in knowing yourselves. And this is what you came out of this, and you're a different person. And, like, what do they say in the quantum work? It's like you're going to have to be prepared to be a different person
Mm.
in order to heal, to have to evolve, to break the habit of being yourself. It doesn't mean you're going to change. You're you. You had to break through, not by punching, not by resisting, not by holding on, not by stopping, by somehow moving. And that's fearless and courageous. In your quiet little self, Gina Mullen, you were just this, like, lion cub. This lion cub, yeah? Anyway, wow, we hit all corners. And I was going to say, where's your mom, Jeannie? And here she is.
She just came on.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm so happy. I mean, really, I feel so blessed to be a pillar here with Jeannie Colwyn on the other side and rubbing shoulders, and you in the middle, Gina, and sharing this amazing recovery, which isn't over yet. You said it yourself, like, and you're accepting your reality. You're not like, I want it now, I want it gone, I want it free, I want it in the mail. You're like, this is the way it is, 90%. Okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm working through it at a pace that where I stay feeling safe. I know some people push harder and faster, but for me, I was just okay. What can I do while still feeling safe? And that was the most important piece to me.
So, Gina, if you ever need anything, you need to reach out, you need to come and have a voice, you want to meet some kind of doctor and bring them on the show, we're always here. We can fit another person in the studio here. We can fit 4 people.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk. It's been really exciting being the one sitting in this seat after I spent so many hours watching other people. So thank you for what I do.
Beautiful. So I'll send this. I'm going to put it up on YouTube and write a description, and I'll put your Facebook page so people can contact you. So wait until I send you the YouTube, and I'd love you to post it and share it so people can really. We're already inspiring people. It's the way the universe works. We're already helping people. One thought at a time, one breath at a time, one symptom at a time. So thank you so much to both of you, lovely ladies. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, and thank you to our listeners. See you next week. All the best. God bless. Okay, 1 second. It's going to go off.